Wake Up Pancreas. I'm Alex.
And I'm Danny, and welcome to episode 8 of Wake Up Pancreas. So today we're going to talk about really the importance of, I think, communication.
Communication.
Yes.
What do you mean?
So today I'll give some backstory, which probably got me thinking about this. It's Wellness Week at work, and they're bringing in guest speakers, and they had a couples counselor come in and do a guest speaking presentation on really healthy relationships and saying how he just knows with spending 5 minutes with a couple if they are going to be divorced in the next 5 years or if they're going to stay together forever. And but funny story, he has been divorced 3 times, yet he's a couples counselor, which is really funny, actually.
Sounds like a fortune teller. Okay,
yes.
Continue.
So he knows by experience, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's quite a bit of experience, I bet.
But as we all know, one of the essential pieces of a healthy relationship is communication.
Yes.
And talking out your feelings, talking about what's going on, exploring everything, right?
Okay.
Well, let's add a type 1 diabetic into that and see what happens.
Yes, let's add with type 1 diabetic.
So we've noticed, when Marcel was first diagnosed, I was home with her and I was on top of everything. I was like, this is how much she's eating. This is how much insulin she gets. This is what happens when she does this activity and whatnot.
Right.
However, when I went back to work after school and now she's home and we've switched roles,
yes,
Alex is now home with her. It's hard to know what's going on with her all the time because I'm not there constantly.
Right.
And one of the examples is when I have to take her to her endocrinology appointment. So her appointment is at my work. So it's easy for Alex to drop her off if he has to go pick up our son and I stay with her because it's at my work. But they'll say, oh, well, what does she eat? What is she doing for this? I'm like, I have no idea. So I'll be like, oh, Marcel, just tell them what you had for lunch today. She's French fries. I'm like, you do not eat French fries every day. Tell the truth. And so communication is so essential, I think in general with relationships, but with a type 1 diabetic as a child as well. So I know one of the areas that we are still working on, I could say we're actively working on, is communicating during the night when Marcel's sugars are low.
Yes, yes.
So imagine parents out there having a newborn at home and elbowing each other saying, it's your turn to get up. No, it's your turn. I already got up. It's your turn. That's what happens in our house whenever she has a night where her sugar just does not want to stay up and we can't stabilize it. So I would say it depends. She goes through times where it could be almost every night for a week and then she's good to go.
Correct.
Then there's times where she'll go a month and we're good. We don't have to get up. But it's those times when it's frequent that we're back to that newborn stage of, no, it's not my turn, it's your turn. Mm-hmm. And if we're half asleep, one of us will get up without telling the other one. It's like, oh, I hear it. Okay, let me just get up. When I let the other one sleep, and then we'll go take care of her sugar. We will check a blood sugar. We'll treat her. We'll do whatever needs to be done. Then we get back in bed without telling the other.
Oh, yes. This happened to me several times. And then you get up, and then you go check them, and then you don't know what to ask because you don't want to wake up the other person. So you're like, you know what? I'm just going to check her sugar.
I'll help Danny out. I'll get up this time.
I'll get up this time. And usually, it actually happened recently, didn't it? So I got up to check her sugar. I treated her, right? She was under, gave her some juice at the time frame, and then went back to sleep, right? Then I hear Danny get up and try to check her sugar, and I can hear her, and I'm awake. Half of me doesn't want to say anything because in my head, I'm saying, I'm asleep. Don't move. And the other half, I remember mumbling I already checked her. Go back to sleep.
But on my side, I was like, her Dexcom's not working. She must be laying on it. It's saying she's low. So if it's saying she's low, it could be a pressure low. So if you're sleeping on the sensor with so much pressure of your body on it, it reads low. Sometimes when it's not actually low.
Correct. This is where we check her sugar.
So we check her sugar. So unfortunately, our lack of communication and trying to care for each other at the same time saying, let them sleep, they've had a hard day, I got it this time, is us sticking Marcel maybe 2 or 3 times because we don't realize the other person has gotten up. So that night, I actually checked her blood sugar again, doing a finger stick, and like, I already checked it. I already did a finger stick. And I'm like, well, too late. Already did it. And her sugar was fine, but poor thing.
You got to remember, Marcel at the same time will wake up grouchy and will not try to fight us off almost in a sense. It'd be like, hey, leave me alone. I'm trying to sleep. Get away, parents. Shoo. So
do you find that she does that in the middle of the night? I feel like when she does that the most, it's usually within like the first 2 or 3 hours of falling asleep. She's like the most grouchy, like, leave me alone. But otherwise, she's like, I'm already asleep. Here's my hand. And she's just snoring it off.
You know what? I can tell you that if I gotta almost bribe her. The moment she hears candy, she pops up
so
straight
true.
out of bed and stakes out her arm and is like, give me candy now. Parents now.
Absolutely. I know I've done that. And actually, I do it almost every night before we go to bed. If her sugar's trending down, that I know it's going to be low in like the next hour, like right when you close your eyes and fall asleep and it goes off, I try to treat her and she doesn't want to get up. She's absolutely adamant about that. And I can't fault her for that. I would be the same way. Actually, I probably am the same way.
I'd be so angry if someone woke me up in the middle of the night.
And I have to say, hey, candy. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, two more, you can do it. And then she goes back to sleep. But that communication is so essential because it really does make the difference of, are we over-treating her? Because if we get lazy, which, I mean, this is life. It happens. You don't want to check a sugar because it takes longer. Your eyes have to open up and accommodate to the light. And you're like, I don't want to do this. Sometimes we just say, okay, it's low. Here's some candy, not realizing it's a pressure low. And then the next one gets up and might think the same thing. And we're just over-treating her with too much. Then her sugar's skyrocketing when she rolls over and now she's not laying on the Dexcom. So
it's a teeter-totter to trying to find a balance between checking her sugar through blood, right? And then figuring out if it's a pressure low at the same time. It's kind of like, I almost made a fart noise out of my mouth right now, but I stopped myself just because I remember I was
they
in
can't
speaker.
see you. They can only hear you screaming,
Yes,
what did he just do?
Yes, I almost made a fart noise. That's how my opinion of that goes.
And being me, if you did, I wouldn't let you live it down. I'm like, Alex, why did you just do that?
Yeah.
So don't trust me if you hear those noises because I might just be making fun of him. But talking about that and this communication piece, being a military family, we move every 3 years. And usually that last year, we get pretty antsy. We're like, where are we going? Where do you think we could be going? Start looking at all the potential places. And now that the kids are getting older, we're looking even earlier. And we're like, what schools can we send them to? What's a good area to live? Are we sending them to private school? We're sending them to public school this time, like depending on where we live and if we need to buy a house or if we need to rent and all those questions that come into mind every 3 years. But now the question's going to come into mind of, do they have a nurse on staff? Can they take a type 1 diabetic child?
Yeah, can they take a type 1 diabetic, or are they willing to take a type 1
Exactly.
diabetic? How long would it take for her to go back to school, to implement a plan? There's so many questions.
Now, most public schools have a nurse on staff. And in the job that I'm in now, I've had to do some interviews in the last week, and several school nurses have applied. And they take care of like one nurse to like 600 students.
Jeez.
So like, I'm not saying that there's no way that they are doing a good job, because not at all. However, it's knowing how in depth we are with Marcel's care and being on top of it. Like, it has to take a superhero to be able to do that if you have that many kids.
Or my worst case scenario is she's kind of just an overseer. She's hoping that the kids do most of the work, and she just makes sure that they're not over treating themselves, or you know what I mean.
But
just
do you think
doing something
that's
crazy?
Do you think that's wrong? Because if you think about it, we're trying to get Marcel to that point. So
Yeah,
really
but-
motivating that independence, but just
Exactly.
oversee.
Which Marcel's what, 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. She's 5. So treat yourself for a pizza there, Marcel. It's going to be 22 carbs, right? Here's a slab of pizza. Here's your devices. Go ahead. She just looks at me like, what's the password?
It's so true. But one of my concerns, I've been looking at schools, so will they take her, will they not? Public schools absolutely have to take her. However, private schools don't.
Yeah.
They can't discriminate, but they say we don't have the resources available to care for this. And we've had that experience with daycares that have absolutely refused and then tried to say, because it was during COVID, it's actually what's best for her because she's more at risk for COVID. So it's better she's not here.
Yeah.
And as parents, it has become so stressful because we just stopped looking for schools at that point because we had been denied. Like even on one of the military bases, it went all the way to the region and the lawyers at the region area. So if you're not familiar with how the military works, the country is broken up into sections. Like half the country's on one side, half's on the other, and then there's like Europe and stuff. And that's how far up it went up the chain, and they still denied it, saying the policy says no, we don't have to do this. So it's become really disheartening. Like, will they actually care for our child? Will they not? And we thought we hit like the jackpot when we moved here because they said, oh yeah, we have an individual nurse for every student that needs one. They hire a contract nurse to go into the daycares and work with each child. However, the one that was working with Marcel was assigned to another student in the afternoon. So the teachers were left to take care of her. And there was times where I would come in, like I can see her glucose on my phone and at work, and I'm like having an anxiety attack. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's dropping. She's like in the 40s and she's not coming up. So watching that was just so unhealthy for me. But there was one time I went in and the teacher, and I feel bad for the teacher, but at the same time, I say us, we need to advocate for Marcel and her safety because she can't. And I see this teacher trying to wrangle all these like 3 and 4 year olds trying to change diapers here. There's one of her and like 6, 7 kids, and Marcel's glucose is saying 42, and then it started saying low, and she goes, "Oh, that thing's broken." I was like, "Well, have you checked her?" And I walk in to check her glucose, and she's I think 38.
Yeah.
Which is mind blowing, and instead the teacher just wrote it off as if it's not working.
Also, at the time, Marcel was 3, right? So it was quite a bit ago. So yeah, I understand. It was definitely a stressful time trying to figure out what we were gonna do.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely on our mind, and that communication piece, and it's hard with schools that want to see diabetes as black and white. Just like say asthma, hey, if they're having a hard time breathing, give them this many puffs, they should come back. Diabetes isn't like that. How much stress is your body under? Are they slightly under the weather with a sniffle because their sugar's going to be high then? Did they just run a lot and not eat enough carbs? Now their sugar's low. It's just not a black and white thing.
No, it's not.
And we need a school that can see that gray and work with us through it. So it's one of those things that are on our mind when we talk about communication is eventually how are we going to communicate with these schools? And I think the school that we plan on sending her to, they have several students that have type 1 diabetes.
Correct.
And I just know that because I've seen them and they're older, but they're willing to work with us. And I think maybe something less stringent as having a nurse there constantly that has to follow that black and white plan. And I'm not talking bad about nurses because, you know, I am one. I'm just saying we follow doctor's orders.
Correct.
If it's written, yes, we critically think, we'll question them, but we follow what's written. And I think almost just having someone that is a layperson that learns it might actually be better for that, being able to see the gray. Because we've sent her to babysitters before that we've worked with, and they're, hey, she's a little low. And they've been a lot more relaxed about it. Like, okay, sure. Because we're not stressed, so they're not stressed because we tell them what to do. Versus someone that understands really the complexities of it. In a hospital, you don't see a patient in the 30s because that's like, you're like, no, I caught it ahead of time. But if someone's used to seeing, 70, I have to treat this patient, they're low, and then seeing a 30, like, how are you not in a coma? Is what they're thinking. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I think there's going to be a lot of stress with it, but thinking about where we're moving and looking what schools are out there, I'm definitely kind of keeping in mind, do they have a nurse? Will they take her? I'm
chuckling because in the back of my head, I imagine just giving someone my entire whole her supplies, like, good luck, see you later.
Because she has so much. When we send her to school, we have to send her with everything, her recovery stuff. What if her pump stops working? What if all this? And it is a lot. And I can see, and so I always tell people, this is a lot. And I want to put a manual together. Like, this is how you do it for Marcel. And that's one of the things I'm going to work on this summer, and just let them know I'm on the phone constantly. Give me a call. Give Alex a call so that we're there and we can help.
Definitely. So it's a stressful thing. I guess once again, it's about letting go and trying to figure out a balance of trying someone else. Like, hey, here you go. I'm trusting you to just treat her for her carbs. If she's low, just talk to her and here, give her a juice box. And that's about it. And just let her sit down when she's low. When she's high, let her run around.
Yeah.
Give her some water and let her run around. Don't just let sit her down.
But even if she's low, she doesn't have to necessarily sit. Give
That's
her enough
true.
candy and let her keep playing.
Yeah, that's true.
And find that balance. Don't let the disease control her life. But how does she adapt within that
Yeah.
disease? If she needs to sit, okay. If she's like, I'm tired, I'm dizzy, yes, let's sit so you don't get hurt. But if you're running and she's like, I'm perfectly fine, here's some fruit snacks, here's a juice, chug it and keep on playing, girlfriend.
Yep, I agree 100%.
All right, well, that's it for our show today on Wake Up Pancreas. See you next week.